Okay, we are here in the lovely surrounds of Patrickswell. Ciaran, I was just saying to you a moment ago that I've driven past the sign for Patrickswell hundreds of times, I'd say, and never once popped in. What I've been missing is one of the most hardcore hurling communities in the country, I'd say. The colour around this place this morning is unbelievable.
Yeah, without a doubt, and I suppose it wouldn't be a proper thing to say, but I would probably verbalise of the home of hurling in Limerick. I'd be slightly biased there. Yeah, without a doubt, they made an extra effort this week, and driving through the village now, when you see the sight of the green and white coming out the windows and across the way the ESB poles and all the public houses and the shops, to be fair to Patrickswell J, they've always historically made a huge effort anytime Limerick got to the quarter or the semi or the final. So proper order, and when you've three amigos as big as we have in the squad at the moment, it's extra special. So you need to make an effort. Thank God the club did.
Yeah, and three players who've become the country become so familiar with over the last few years as well. How much pride do people from Patrickswell get out of the fact that Lynch, Burns and Gillette are all household names now in nationwide hurling?
Yeah, there's huge pride, and very grateful as a club. And the three of them individually, they're all different, uniquely different as personalities, uniquely different on the field. But each of them in their own right are huge, massive fishes, part of the Limerick squad, and have played a massive part. And Limerick winning 2 All-Irelands, and please God, they likewise will play a huge part on Sunday if we're to cross the line. You'll need the three of them flat to the mat on the day.
When you're a kid in Patrickswell, is hurling everything? Is there a bit of everything, or what's the sort of environment for a kid?
I suppose I was lucky where I was reared directly behind the hurling field. So the minute you come out from school, you're out the back playing, a little gate straight onto the field. Yeah, all hurling. Was there a bit of football played at one time? There was, of course, but Phil Binnis, I suppose he would have managed Patrickswell for years, and he'd an old saying, if he saw football above in the field, he'd bust it with a knife. So in case anybody had any intention of bringing a football to the field, it was fairly wiped out there. Yeah, but traditionally, yeah, it would be a real hurling village.
And are you noticing that as a result of the success of the local lads and of the county team, that it's just breeding more success, and future generations are more likely to pick up a hurl? Not so much here because this is the home of hurling, but elsewhere around the county.
Yeah, without a doubt, in even my work and you're driving, no matter what village you go through, you see little kids with hurlings and balls, and I suppose success breeds success. And I'm acutely aware that the era we're involved with presently at the moment in Limerick hurling, it's special, and it's new to all of us, because we haven't experienced before, and you need to save hay while the sun shines. Sometimes counties get a few years of dominance. Dublin were caught last week, historic in their own right, winning 6 All-Irelands. Will we ever see it again? Probably not. And it's Limerick's time now, it's this crop's time for the last number of years, and please God, it's just a start. Just see where the journey will finish.
What would your routine have been in the 90s preparing for an All-Ireland final around here then?
Well, I suppose I can't say I was eating spare ribs the night before. Now, it wouldn't be fair. My routine, I suppose, obviously, we did our level best to eat well. And, leading up to any big game, really, you have to be conscious on a Monday if you're playing on a Sunday, not to allow the game hijack you emotionally every day. But I suppose it has to be in the back of your head. And, the closer you're getting to the game, obviously, you're cranking it up mentally within yourself. And I suppose we had to learn that all ourselves, because we hadn't sports psychologists back then. I suppose we had to become our own sports psychologists without us realising it, and sometimes we had to become our own coach without us realising it. And I suppose that in itself was huge learning. But I tend to keep it nice and cool, and it was another match. But obviously I used to take the title out of the game and see it as another game. But yeah, that was one part of the game that I love myself personally, and if I was ever asked, which I am often asked, what you miss from the game, I suppose traditionally the answer is the roar of the crowd and the camaraderie and, and the training. I suppose that pressure, putting yourself under pressure for a big game, knowing that you have to deliver the goods, knowing that you have to produce the goods on the field, that's what I miss, the pressure of that. So it can be a huge thing for a person who's able to manage it, and then it can be a disadvantage for a player who's finding it difficult.
Yeah, because like so many people talk about the pride of their locality and having that in the back of their mind when they're going out on All-Ireland final day, and then other people look at it and say, God, you can't be thinking about that because it's too much pressure. So I suppose it's all down to the individual.
Down to the individual and the balance, really, and everybody's different. Everybody have their own way of coping. And I can remember one particular time, Leonard Enright, Lord of Mercy soul, he's dead and buried now, and he was going to the toilet, and he used to be shouldering off both walls. So everybody's different. Another fellow would be out there kind of kind of the legs would be shaken, and you could spot it and sense it in players. But I heard a wise man say one particular time, and it stood me in great value. The coolest man will always come out on top. And and I suppose in the modern game, really, it's a matter of being on top of your emotions, not letting your emotions kind of kidnap you so much that it's going to be not an obstacle or prevent you from producing the goods. So it's a matter of finding the balance.
When you were looking at these last few years of Limerick hurling, possibly about to join one of the greatest teams of all time over the next couple of years if things continue to go well, do you think about the 90s at all? Do you think about coming so close in your own playing days and perhaps this current team, I don't know, giving you those moments of happiness that maybe you didn't manage to get in the 90s?
Not particularly, really, because I've kind of come to peace with that. Bottom line is, when you go to Cork on the big day, if you are going to win, you have to produce the goods as a squad and as a team, and possibly we lacked a bit of that. And we had our chance, to be fair, but this group of players are totally different, and I suppose timing is everything. The academy started off in Limerick, which was a huge help and support. John Kiley, very successful at minor and 21 level. Perfect timing with this crop. And I suppose Paul Kinnerk really is the man that probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves. He's turned the game inside out for the better for the last number of years. And, he's the main one of this. And combined in the squad, the sponsor, the academy, John Kiley together, perfect timing. So that's the way I view it.
It does seem that there is this general wave of happiness as a result of this team as well, and even just listening to a bit of Live 95 this morning, kind of the importance of this team in the context of what everybody's gone through over the last couple of years is kind of important as well, where they're going as favourites this weekend. They obviously have the All-Ireland from last year, where there have been these brief moments of real happiness in a county, in a country where there have been some really dark times. And I know maybe through your own line of work as well, that you probably will have seen that close up and know the importance of what a great sports team can give to people, even for just a moment.
Yeah, without that, hugely important. And I suppose we're blessed enough that we're talking about hurling, and you can actually say that about any sport really, because mentally it's going to be good for your physical health, whatever type of sport it is. But you're right, the amount of happiness and joy this Limerick squad is actually bringing. I suppose they won't really realise it until the longevity of time. I suppose the knock-on effect that they're having, not only on their own little individual communities, but on Limerick as a whole, it's absolutely massive. And it is great to be around to witness it.
I do want to chat about the match, but just on that point that you made there about the communities, and as I say, you're a qualified psychotherapist at this point, you will have seen maybe the hidden pandemic quite a lot in a number of the communities around this county. Could you try and describe, I guess, now that we're hopefully a little bit on the other side of things, how hard these last few months have been from your own perspective and in terms of the people that you've worked with and their perspective?
Yeah, and I suppose there's a trend really there, and when you look at the three lockdowns, the first one, I suppose it was a novelty for all of us, and you had people working at home, and at the time, families appear to be getting a lot more tighter, spending a lot more time with each other, going for walks or going for cycling. And the second lockdown was something similar, and probably a lot more people active, cycling, walking or jogging. And I think actually the third lockdown, I think probably was the hardest one for people. It was kind of a bit like Groundhog Day, here we go again. And I suppose people took the eye off the ball, their own responsibility, what they need to do to keep themselves well. And I suppose we're probably meeting now the knock-on effect to that with my Move counselling services, which I started 6 months ago. And and talking about addiction is one area, but mental health then and struggling, whatever area of your life, so basically what I'm saying is we're getting the backlash now at the moment, and we're extremely busy. And initially we started off with 1 unit, but we're after purchasing 2 units now at the moment, so that will give you an indication where people's mental health is overall. So thankfully at the minute, facing an All-Ireland final, softens the blow a bit for an awful lot of people.
Absolutely. When you talk about the backlash there, is there a case that maybe people were struggling during any of the 3 lockdowns and maybe didn't actually realise how acute their struggle actually was until now, basically?
Yeah, possibly too late, and I suppose probably one of the hardest thing of all really is to, I suppose, take ownership. Number one, that you're struggling. Number two, that your mental health isn't where it should be. And the biggest one of all then is picking up the phone and making a call. Sounds very simple, having a discussion, but extremely hard for someone to do that. And that usually is the first step. And, and I suppose there's an onus on everybody, really, their responsibility to keep themselves physically well and mentally well. And if you take the eye off the ball on that, if you stop doing, your structure, if your discipline goes in any area of your structure, you know, you possibly are going to struggle in some areas. And as you rightly pointed out, yeah, the backlash is fairly high at the minute because of that.
Do you think, I guess, at the end of all this, that there is kind of maybe a greater appreciation of sports people, not only as role models, but of people and their activity, and people getting out and getting active a little bit more over the last little while, and there is just a general appreciation of the role sports plays in terms of healthy well-being and not just in terms of keeping the body well?
Yeah, without a doubt. And even if you were watching the Olympics the last time, and some tennis player, you know, a lot of sports people that are fairly rated, fairly high, you know, that you wouldn't expect to be talking about their mental health, you know, they're coming out doing it now, which is fantastic. And, you know, that then probably, please God, would give the ordinary Joe Soper 5'8", you know, that small bit of motivation, you know, by God, and if this person is feeling this and, you know, and is doing something about it, maybe it might be that bit of motivation to pick up the phone to do that. But as I said, you know, picking up the phone is possibly the hardest one of all. But there's another addiction that's after kind of slipping in there now that I noticed myself in the last number of months, is the gambling. So, you know, and to try stay on top of all of it, it's extremely hard. And, you know, when you're talking addiction, the nature of addiction in itself, the person that's in it, irrespective of what addiction it is, you know, it will tell you that you're okay and you're fine and you haven't got it, unfortunately.
It does seem, and obviously we can use kind of the Limerick hurling team as kind of a prism for this conversation, but it does seem that there is a much healthier culture within Gaelic games nowadays, that even just from listening to some of those lads speak, and they're not the only team, they're far from the only team, it does seem that there is a great emotional intelligence about a man like John Kiley, and that really rubs off on some of the players, but maybe the players have it anyway from maybe a better, more healthy culture. Yeah,
without a doubt. And I suppose that stems back to the academy. You know, when you take Keane Lynch and all these guys, they're probably coming through the academy at 15 and 16. So they're getting good habits early. They're getting good habits at 15 and 16, which is the perfect age to start. Now they're on to about 25, 26. So that they've continued the habits, continued their structure. And, you know, the modern inter-county footballer or hurler now, that, you know by their physique that they're meticulous a day at a time looking after themselves. You know, I'm looking at the Limerick squad now. They look more like Olympians than hurlers, you know, and that'll give you an idea where the strength and conditioning and the well-being physically and mentally, how they're looking after themselves.
Yeah, you talk about those good habits, like it's far more normal now for a GAA player to be teetotal and not drink at all. I mean, like obviously Keane's been on the show quite a bit, and Philly McMahon as well, and they would always be on, I guess, the morning after, because they would be the ones not drinking the night before. But that's becoming more normalised as well. Even that culture is changing, even though it's still a huge part of the GAA, but it is changing.
Yeah, and great to see. You know, as I said, you know, the boys here, I'd have the finger on the pulse. I'd know a good few of them. You know, they have 2 All-Ireland medals. You know, they go on their holidays. You know, but they don't seem to dog it. Enough is enough to have that bit of celebrations, and I suppose they're responsible about it, and they're very manly about it, and I suppose they're aware possibly also, you know, there's a bit of a reputation that's required when you put on an inter-county jersey, and part of that is how you carry yourself on the field and also how you carry yourself off the field. So they have all those good habits, and in fairness, this present Limerick squad, they've done that meticulously for the last number of years.
It doesn't hurt when they are an incredible collection of hurlers as well, but it's the combination of those two things that I imagine gives you most hope that this can be a proper dynasty over the next couple of years.
Without a doubt, and to be fair, since it started in 18, you know, the journey did begin, and they're in the middle of the dynasty now. So as I said earlier on, just see now how far they can go and see will it take it. But yeah, to answer your question, you'd be proud as punch looking at them.
Cork are a wild card, is the thing. They're a team that can, I guess they can overperform, they can underperform, and you don't really know what sort of Cork is going to show up. But does the way in which they beat Kilkenny after conceding that late goal change your view on the threat that Limerick are going to be posed with at the weekend?
Yeah, and I suppose I'll go back to the very first game Limerick and Cork played this year in the championship, and to be fair, Limerick underperformed that day, and if my memory serves me right, Seamus Flanagan, Aaron Gillette, Gerard Hegarty, and who's the other? Tom Morrissey. They were whipped off. That's new territory, never saw that before. But Cork on the day didn't kind of come mentally or physically well. There was only 2 players I can remember that did actually hurl well. Darragh Fitzgibbon was outstanding. Young Jack O'Connor the first 20 minutes off. Cork came that day. They could have caught Limerick. Huge surprise. Now, and I watched Cork that day and I saw them against Kilkenny. Total different team. You can see they're a lot more organised. And I'll give one example of the goalkeeper, Collins, that day against Limerick. He put Cork under severe pressure with his puck outs, and a lot of unforced errors. So I watched him last Sunday. It was obviously confronted, dealt with, and this is the way it must go. So you can see there's a huge change from that game to now, and it's Donal O'Grady's handprint all over them. They're a lot more organised, and watching them against Kilkenny, to answer your question straightforward, I was blown away by Cork, I have to be fair. I was a neutral watching it, and I was hugely impressed. So it's a final, and it could turn out to be probably one of the greatest classics of all time. If the best version of Cork comes, and if the best version of Limerick comes, we're in for some treat.
Limerick then, I guess, there has been a couple of schools of thought out there as to how is the best way to beat them. Maybe if you took the first 5-10 minutes of the Waterford game in isolation, you thought, right, okay, Waterford are maybe doing what Kilkenny did in 2019 a little bit. So why did Limerick end up running away with it in such emphatic fashion?
The Waterford game?
Yes.
My belief really for that is straightforward now, and Waterford now, you know, have fairly come close with Limerick playing them for the last number of years, so they have a fair idea what Limerick do. And for me watching it, Waterford tried to beat Limerick the exact same way they did the last time, and you know, they were just under pressure and they were punished. And if you're going to give Limerick and allow Limerick have a sweeper, you're going to be under pressure straight away. And at some stages during that game, they had one or two. So I think tactically, myself personally, Waterford got it wrong and very wrong on the day, and Limerick capitalised on that and they hurt them because of that. But you know, the final, I believe whoever possibly will get it tactically right on the day, both full forward lines will be exactly looking for the same thing. Flanagan is going to thrive on grass, he'll be looking for grass. Patrick Horrigan did the exact same. Aaron Gillette will be looking for space. Jack O'Connor is going to be looking for space. So the team really that comes up with a plan, implements what they need to implement, and I suppose more importantly, be disciplined enough to do it for the hour and 15 or 20 minutes. I think tactically it's going to be massive. So whatever team kind of wins that area possibly could come out on top. Are
you expecting any rabbits out of a hat from Limerick then tactically?
Possibly not. You know, they don't. To be fair to them, I'm not saying this in an arrogant way. They don't need to do it because the way they're going is working and might change now. So probably from Cork tactically, Cork will be totally different, I'd imagine, to Waterford. I'd imagine they're going to squeeze up. They might allow the first puck out, but I'd imagine they're going to squeeze in and put a bit of pressure, not to allow Diarmuid Burns have a cup of tea before he hits the ball, kind of an effort. So they're going to squeeze up, I'd imagine. So because, you know, in the back room, Donal O'Grady's in there this year, and you can see, as I said, you can see the organisation definitely in the six backs. Keep possession until they spot a bit of grass, and then they appear to deliver it. So as I said, you know, tactically it's going to be a huge battle. So, and obviously matchups are going to be huge on the day as well.
I should say as well, Ciaran's going to be with us on our Saturday panel on Saturday, obviously, for a few more considered thoughts. What's your routine going to be like for the next few days then? I presume it's chatting to every person on the street about the match and getting up to Dublin nice and early for the weekend? Yeah, all going well, but very, very busy at work. Do a few old interviews, and really looking forward, because there's something special about this game. You know, the championship has been outstanding. You've Kyle Hayes' goal this year. You've Limerick getting an All-Ireland that possibly could win an All-Ireland, will only beating Munster teams. They beat Cork, Tipperary, Waterford, Cork in the final. That in itself is unique and has never been done before. So there's a lot to this particular final, and it could turn out to be a cracker. So, you know, I genuinely can't wait for Sunday. Yeah. Prediction, I presume Limerick by X amount of points? Even if the two teams, as I said, bring the best version of themselves to the final, I just think Limerick, with that bit of experience and possibly that bit more, they're probably a small bit more physical than Cork, I think should be enough to cross the line for us. So, Ciaran Carey, thanks a million. You're welcome on, thank you very much.